Hello.
Good morning, Victor.
Good
Uh,
morning. Sorry about that. Thank you for your patience. But I was onboarding a new team, so it's a bit hectic. Normally it's more chilled in my meeting rooms, but I was just trying to the first time I saw those people trying to get them into tools and stuff, so running around getting things done.
okay. Okay. So,
Uh, yeah, I mean, I have so many questions I want to ask. I have where do we even begin? Maybe we you can tell me about the amazing image that's behind you.
yeah, good morning, Victor. Victor, to let you know, it's 7:15. I've got a little bit of a cold this morning. I've been traveling, so I am going to be well. I just know that I've got a bit of a sore throat and things. So the image in the background is actually virtual reality design of an eco-village. Um, and I have been using uh, real village images in the past for a lot of my literature, and I'm noticing the importance for intellectual property and copyright and things like that. So rather than that, I've started to vision into a new village that I'm wanting to help facilitate. And this was a pleasant image in the background. So that's why I'm using it. Yeah. Victor, I'm very interested to hear about yourself and the purpose of this research I saw online. Um, and what caught my interest particularly is the focus upon regenerative practitioners. I consider myself to be a regenerative practitioner, and I'm not the only one who is challenged to generate an income from the efforts that I make. There's three others that we talk regularly about the passion and what we're doing, and yet we're often questioning how do we translate this into a sustainable or regenerative income for ourselves, so personal regeneration. Um, So that's partly why I'm interested in this questioning or this research that you're doing. Yeah.
Yeah, so uh, very briefly, my journey to this village place is I started working remotely 20 years ago. I was living in Japan at the time in the center of Tokyo, and it was still early days for remote work in those days. But after a few years, I realized, wait, why am I living in this shoebox apartment if I can move out of town and live somewhere cheaper and greener? So I moved out and I discovered the amazing positive impact that being closer to nature had on my mental health. But I also discovered that even though I was living surrounded by nice people, there were different culture, interests, and than me. So I was like, this escaping the city is great, but next time I want to do it with a partner and with friends. And that set me on the journey. I had to regress and move back to the big city because when I met my wife, she was living in London. So I went back and I lived in London for a few years. Went back to the city. It was the first time I lived in London. And so for 10 years, actually, since I exactly remember it, but she says that yes, the first time we met, I was promising her we would escape the city together and live with amazing people in nature, in art, in a village. But as my background is in software, I have an MBA, so product management, startups and so on and so forth. But then when the 10 years that I've been learning and going into real estate, I discovered that the speed is very different. Also, this idea of let's escape the city, build a village for people who are working remotely, because my thesis always was, I mean, there's of course, it's actually really interesting. If you look at the history, and I looked a bit at the history, I think probably people have been trying to escape the city as long as cities have existed. The oldest good records of intentional communities I found were Epicurean communities about, I think they started 400 BC or something, or 200 BC. Have you heard of those?
Yeah, just to let you know, Victor, I completed my PhD in 2021, looking at eco-villages and co-housing in Europe and Australia. And as a precursor to that, I decided to invest time in understanding what was traditional village, what was a purposeful, intentional village, and during that time, I came across both Socrates and also Pythagoras, who in ancient Greek formed their own intentional communities in ancient Greece with different flavors, and and also looking at the religious communities over a couple of thousand years. Not that I visited them, but they gave me a perspective on what they were about. Um,
Yeah,
so
so
that
so
to
you understand all of that. What was your thesis? I'm curious, by the way. What was the title of it?
I was looking at intentional communities, the social, ecological, and economic benefits of intentional communities, particularly co-housing and rural eco-villages in Australia and Europe.
Amazing. Yeah, I would love to read your work sometime. So, I mean, you understand all of this, and then probably you also came across of actually how damn hard it is to build something. And for
I've lived in uh, 8 different communities, ranging from Crystal Waters, which is about 250 people. It's an established community, to small communes, urban communes in southeast Queensland. And I've also co-founded three urban communes, and 2 of them have failed, and one has been measures of success. And now I'm an ambassador to the Co-Housing Australia, ambassador to the Global Eco Village Network, and I'm also the chair of Co-Housing Australia. And a theme that consistently comes across that in discussions is the challenges with starting and maintaining a community in those early years. And from that, I've developed a 10-step process to help groups to go through that, and have been approached recently for groups wanting to do that. And what I have found is that groups who want to do this often either don't want to or don't have the capacity to pay someone such as myself to facilitate it. They want to read a book, or can you give us a website information, or where can I download things? And I often share, well, the information that you can learn online or in books is great, but it actually needs that practical focalizing facilitation.
of course,
And that's a service that I offer through my website and through Co-Housing Australia. And yet I'm challenged with people making my website sing with client and payments and things. So again, why I've reached out to you, um, or why your questioning caught my interest. Um, that early stage of right even before the pioneer stage is the co-founder stage. That is vital for setting the whole tone, and that needs to be funded. I've been a co-founder, and I know what it means to invest time and energy and meetings and things over a year and not achieve anything, not achieve any concrete, tangible outcome when the group doesn't have funding.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is exactly after with not the level, nowhere near the level of study that you have put into it, but enough study of my own, and not we trying to get a project off the ground here ourselves, but also being in contact with people, all kinds of people trying to do projects around Portugal and Europe and the world really. And what I see is that projects get stuck at money. I mean, the bottom line is that real estate is big money, and actually real
Yeah,
estate is finance. And a huge chunk of what real estate is about is finance.
yes,
And I have friends that are regenerative designers, community builders, and da da da. But all of that comes after you've got planning permission, after you've bought the land, and so on and so forth. And that's heavy real estate. I mean, I really see, for me, I don't feel connected with the Ecovillage network world. I took a 1 month long Ecovillage design education,
yeah,
and I find it farcical that in that 1 month we did not see a single spreadsheet.
yeah,
Whilst when I was trying to build a village, 80% of my time was spent with my nose in spreadsheets.
yes, yeah,
I should have probably spent 50% time talking to investors and 50% of the time in spreadsheets.
yeah,
But still, especially in the early days, I think
mm,
there is a new generation. So my thesis always has been is that there is a new enabled by remote work. There is a new generation of village projects which is becoming viable.
mm,
And until COVID, when I said remote work will change society, everybody said, "Oh, there you go, you're crazy. Maybe in 50 years, maybe in 100, or you're in tech, won't happen here." At least since COVID, nobody tells me I'm crazy when I say remote work will have a big impact on society. So I see the kinds of projects which I've been dreaming of for 10, 12 years, I see since COVID have started, more and more people have been talking about it.
yes,
But of course, real estate innovation doesn't run on a few year cycle, it runs on a 10, 20, or 30-year cycle. So the first projects that people thought out after COVID, it took them a year or something to get the deck, get the idea, and then 2, 3 years to get funded. And now finally, I'm starting to hear this year. I heard of 2 or 3 projects which were like, yes, we're getting close to being funded, or we've gotten funded, or we're about to be funded.
yes.
Uh, but it's very hard, and I don't believe in the not in the sense that the model that I am looking at and which I'm excited about is developer team led projects. So built by a team, exit to community. To me, there is no doubt that in the long run, once a project is built for, if you want a project to last 100 years, it's all about community. But the building phase, in my opinion, needs to be managed by a team because innovation, all of that stuff, I think it needs to be probably a quite sizable team, but a people sitting around in a big circle developing a village and raising tens of millions of euro, pound, dollars doesn't seem likely to me. Of course, nothing is impossible, but it doesn't seem likely. And these kinds of projects are coming online. But the key thing, and the reason that I started this project, sorry.
So, Victor, what you're sharing is ringing true for me. I've had the significant frustration with the global eco-village network that it was primarily focused upon the social and some ecological, and no one's talking about money. And very recently, I've been working with a group in Gosford, and I said, look, the social architecture is just as important as the physical architecture. And the social architecture must get, in my opinion, must be facilitated just like a physical project. And what I notice in development projects, housing development projects, there's a project manager from day one to prepare a project proposal before it goes to development application, before it goes to the financial. There's someone who has the skill set and has an office and is funded to do that preparatory work long before. I concur with you. I firmly believe that it needs to be led by a small group of, and I'm thinking 5 people collaborating on the team. So it's interesting you're mentioning the same. 5 people who are a mixture of entrepreneurship, but also have skill set to drive. And it's not push, it's not to dictate, but it is to drive and push through that very early stage before it goes out to the full. Might be 30 people who want to become members, or even 100 who want to become members of this eco-village in the hills or a co-housing village in the city. But it still needs to be driven by a core group who are funded. Again, I keep mentioning that word, that are funded prior to the development, prior to the physical, prior to marketing it, prior to having a sales process, all of that sort of thing. And I'm keen to be part of a collaborative, small collaborative, and I don't mind remote as well, who are driving these early stages of a project. Zola Rose in New Zealand is also, we catch up every week or two, and has the same mindset of wanting to, sometimes it's facilitate, use the word facilitate, and sometimes it's word lead, but to lead from that directed place, which is structured and has systems and has spreadsheets and has accountability and all of that, so that when it goes to the larger group, there's already a foundational system, there's already a vision. The vision can adjust, of course, but there is already a vision in place that is a co-housing village in a suburban area of a major city. It looks like this generally, and we've done the numbers on it, and it can be developed and built in 2 years, and now we're looking for members to be part. What I notice the other happens when it's completely resident-led is a group of people get together with not much skill set, not much research, passion, sometime, and they get burnt out. And then that one leaves, and then the next person comes in and has to start all over again, that group forming, that small group forming. I'm both tired of that and not interested in that. My interest is to be part of a tight collaborative that is building villages from the beginning phase. And something I want to mention is I've done a lot of research on the bottom up resident-led and the top down developer-led. They're quite different models and have quite different skill sets and funding models, of course. I've been working on a paper to turn them on their side. So there's not one up, one down, or vice versa, that there's a collaborative circle. And within the circle is the core group that is leading. And then the next circle out is a little bit like the permaculture model of groups who are involved, but not intimately involved, and then the further circles, the stakeholder. Nothing new about this, but what to me is new is that residents often hate developers and banks. That's what I notice. Developers and banks often have a fear.
Can you repeat that? I didn't.
What I notice is that residents who want to escape from the city often have a disregard or a fear of banks and developers and council and government and systems and legislation. The top down, so the developers often have a view of future residents as sales. It's a sales mechanism, it's a property mechanism. And therefore, they often are against each other, antagonistic to each other. Obviously, there's lots of situations where it's not the case, but to me, it is a spectrum, and I'm suggesting turning it on its side so that a developer can sit beside a future resident. And the model that I keep buzzing in my head is a collective of 5 people who lead the process of developing in a location and then another, who are cutting the wind, who are making that beginning part easier for residents to come in later. That's my dream, that's my vision.
So a regenerative developer, effectively. But let me, if I may now, I love, by the way, I fully agree and resonate with everything that you're saying, and it's wonderful hearing from somebody that has spent so much more time and formal study on this than myself to have come to the same conclusion. So where does the money come from? And this is where I started this group, because I have seen our project fail to fundraise. I've seen other projects around me that were people that were even more skilled, super energized. Commercially, it makes sense, and all of this, and they failed to fundraise. So, what I have come to realize is that it seems like it's houses. Everybody builds houses. It's real estate. Real estate, it's easy. Everybody, trillions, every build, but no, right? When it comes to funding, people fund what they know, and especially in real estate. Real estate is not where money goes to have an adventure. Real estate is where money goes to have a nice rest. So real estate money wants that apartment block sold. Can we build one more or less, ideally exactly the same, right next to it? The closer the better, because I know that one how much it sold for. So I assume the next one will sell for the same, and I want more of those. So when we come to real estate funds, investors, and such, oh, we have housing, it's in the countryside. That's like coming to a farmer that has a lot of cows and saying, look, I have a zebra. It's also got 4 legs. It's an animal. It's a mammal. You do, and it's like, no, right? They do cows. They understand cows. They have been doing them like this. And your zebra, it doesn't matter that it's like, it's an animal, 4 legs, eats grass, like, no, right? It's not, it doesn't look to them like anything that they know, and there is no interest. So that's why I started this interview series to talk with people. Where is the money, and like, what do we make the money flow? So the conclusion is that from the interviews that I've had so far is that standard real estate money, I mean, if you're doing urban projects, it's a bit different because urban is urban, right? They understand urban real estate development, urban housing. But if you're trying to do a village outside the thing, it's selling zebras to a cow herder. It's, uh, and the money that people do get is from high net worth individuals, family offices, because those are the investors that make investments on more emotional things. And also, I had an amazing conversations with a woman that's an expert in funding, philanthropic funding. She's done hundreds of projects, amazing, amazing. And she said that's the role of high net worth individuals in the financial market. They do the more innovative stuff, and that's what they're supposed to be doing. If you look at any kind of institutional money of any form, It's got to be bog standard because they just follow existing patterns. And
Yeah.
that's why I started this group to see if how do we create a narrative in the world so that there is a box that investors can put us into. I've kind of been free thinking and having lived in many countries, not even just kind of through a life path. I don't even know where the boxes are, right? Like, I'm like, where's the box? I don't see the boxes. But as it turns out, when you're in an investment, you really want to be in a box. You really want to appear like you are and be in a box as much as possible, because that makes the first part of the conversation much, much easier. So this is kind of the journey that I'm on, is how do we paint ourselves a box that the investors understand? Now, going back to your inquiry, right? How do you find work for people like yourself? And the way I think to go about it is don't pitch it to, grassroots groups and such, because they don't got money. You
Yes.
pitch it to
I've
investors.
experienced that also. Yeah.
You pitch it to investors, and the way that you pitch it is community building is it's a cheaper way to do sales and marketing. You start sooner, but you get the money sooner because you get engagement. And to a developer, right? If a developer is going for their funding or whatever, they're like, we've pre-sold 30% of the things. We have 100 people on the waiting list. That's money. That's worth a lot. So that's the way you pitch it to a developer. You don't go to like, it's going to be nice, it's going to be fluffy, the people kumbaya. No, they don't want kumbaya. The way you pitch it to a developer is you get engaged people and you get your pre-sales sooner. You don't have to wait until you've built the whole thing and then try and push sales, blah, blah, blah. Or, you can do it and you don't even have to go to the fucking agents, which take whatever percentage. And that's the story which I believe, of course, not with everybody, but that's the language which will convince developers to pay you, right? And then you become, for me, I call it comms, community and communications. And that you bake in and tell, like, people, you need to engage people. It's no longer just a sales and marketing push world. If you're just trying to push advertising out there, it's more expensive. People have a lot of resistance to advertising. People want a genuine thing. If you work with me or with our group, and I would like, collaborate with the people who do the visualizations and marketing and sales, and say, this is the modern, cheaper, easier way to pre-sell by getting the people engaged and involved. You get your money earlier, right? For a developer, time is money. If you can say, I can have your development sold 6 months sooner than you would the traditional method, their eyes will go like this. Because in their mind, that immediately translates to money. And that money is way, like, it will be a very good salary and a very good, once you get it going, right? You have a few projects on the go. So that's the language I think that I would look at speaking with developers. Does it make sense? What do you think?
It does make sense. And yesterday I met with I walked into a housing developer in a regional town, and I could see them as soon as I mentioned what I was talking about, glazing over, because it's outside their paradigm. The cow farmers, and I'm coming with a zebra. So to approach with that marketing element where you may not even have to market. You may not even have to advertise at all, because the people will do it themselves. By the people, meaning the pioneers who then become the early adopters, who become the future residents of a hundred family village. or 100 family suburban development. So I very much like that. Victor, I'm at a point at 2 o'clock this morning. I was considering walking away from this whole movement because I am so over giving of my time and giving presentations and things that don't
Well, I
go
mean, I
very
will make
far.
a confession to you. I have told myself that this is the last year. Either something starts moving and making me money or I'm out. High five.
High five to you as well.
But at the same time, like, I had a conversation a week or 2 weeks ago with a guy who reached out to me and said, like, oh, you seem to know a lot of people. We're 30 days from getting funded. We will need people and more projects. And it's like, oh, here's our website. I looked at their deck and he said, yeah, it took us 3 years to fundraise. I looked at their deck, 900 million. They're fundraising 900 million for two projects, one in Colorado, one in Costa Rica. So it's coming. I'm not saying don't give up, and like, but it's clearly coming because COVID started the new thing. And also, yeah, I wanted to connect with one other thing. You said the people that are leaving the city are against the system. I believe some people are, but this new wave of people, right? People like me, right? Yeah, I don't like the government. I don't like taxes, but not to the point where I'm just going to grow my potatoes. I love my career. I love working
Yes.
globally and the things. So it's a new wave of people that has started since COVID because COVID unlocked remote work.
Yes.
Also, there is a wave, I believe, of people coming that started remote work 10, 15 years ago in their 20s, are digital nomads. But how much time can you spend? Like most people are not going to spend their whole life going around the world like this, right?
Yes.
Because you just get
Yeah.
tired. Eventually you just get burned out. But you're
Yeah.
used to, working remotely and all of this. And I think a lot of those people will choose to settle down in the kind of modern villages that we're thinking of.
And Victor, to add to that, is the millennial generation here in Australia. There's now the younger generations that statistically can never own their home because of the high prices of mortgage and the profit mechanism that is in property investment. They're excluded, so they are a very active, very interconnected network, a generation, and they're going to be professionals who work online, not all of them, who so we can't afford to buy our own home in the Australian the Great Australian Dream or the Great American Dream, or perhaps the even other countries in the world, and they're more open to saying, well, what would it look like if five of us bought together? Hang on, we'll do an app for that, or we will let's look at what's happening in the world and being proactive. So I think that's a very exciting demographic that could be across educated levels, cultural levels. It kind of doesn't matter because that generation is, in my observation, really keen to land in a home that has stability that they can afford.
Definitely.
Um,
There is
and
that, but
and within
there's also a bit broke. And then there is the retiring generation
yes,
that
yes,
are like, shit, I don't want to be alone. I
yes,
don't want to go to an old people's home because I'm not, that broken yet.
yes,
And community starts sounding very, very good also. So
yes,
there's many different
yes,
demographics.
yeah. Victor, so I'm enjoying this conversation, and I can see a lot of alignment in what we're doing, and also the journey, and that helps to fill my heart because it means there is many minds going through similar challenge or similar perspectives with an intention for improvement, an intention for new models. And I'm noticing I'm not wanting to engage with the Global Eco Village Network because it is it's such an organisation, not much gets done, what I notice. And I'm now in my dreaming, my meditation, to be involved with like minds, that we have a tangible project journey that is structured, and to collaborate on finding the funding, but also collaborate on the development, and also collaborate on the receiving of the exchange from that. And the company so after all the academia, I realized I wasn't going to get a job in university teaching about eco-villages, because they're not interested. Because it is the zebra in the planning model. So I formed a company with my partner, my life partner, and we have the ability to be really flexible and go to where the need is, and also adjust to invite others to collaborate in that. I will acknowledge I'm not attached to having a company. I'm not attached to being the director of a company. I am in my heart longing to be connecting with 5 people on a daily or weekly basis about project delivery and systemization of making it easier for people who don't have the time but do want to live collectively to transition into that. And that model is still forming in my mind. It's still forming in what I do. And there is times I get quite despondent, quite sad that I went to a public talk at the university last night talking about climate change. And I said, well, eco-villages are a prime example of solutions. And you could have heard a pin drop in this amphitheatre of academics, and no one come up to me afterwards and said, oh, let's talk more about that. Or so I'm pulling out of the academic world and wanting to engage more in the be it the virtual world, or be it in the designing. And when I say the word design, I don't mean architecturally designing 12 buildings that fit together. There's people who are very good at that, and I could have influence, but that's not what I'm to do. I'm more interested in the pioneer phase, or the co-founder phase, of multiple villages. It's not about helping, it's not about volunteering, it's about being professional with a structured process that can lead to tangible outcomes. And you've helped me to comprehend an income source, which is the wealthier individuals or wealthier collectives that are willing to explore, or willing to try something out of the box. I acknowledge I don't have the skill, that I'm aware of anyway, to approach a multi-billionaire or a multi-millionaire group and say, hey, got this great model that needs funding, or we're seeking funding to roll something out. I'm developing that skill, but I'm not very good at it yet. And I know with a collaborative, my business is called Co-Creating More. The previous business was called Co-Creating Community. It is about working collaboratively. And what I notice is that people who are potentially interested in collaborating don't have time to do it on their Saturdays or their evenings or early morning meetings, because they've got a job, because they're an IT person or a nurse or whatever. So I'm looking to work with others who have both the time and the passion to do it, and the awareness to say, this requires a process that is structured, and also trying out of the box solutions in that pioneer and co-founding stage. So that's probably the biggest thing I wanted to bring to the table with you. So my question is, where to from here? Or do you have more questions?
Uh, yeah, so I mean, I think you should probably, so the group, the Impact Real Estate Research Group that we started is a 3-month project. I start things time boxed now because I don't want things to run on forever and then just kind of peter out.
That's good.
There's 3 work streams. One is the one that I'm leading around interviewing people, the money part.
Yes.
The other one is around best practices. And the third one is exactly around that, around building a collective of practitioners around village building. So I think the third one of practitioners, of organizations, of booting up and creating a public face where exactly like you said, we can support each other in that. So I think it would be interesting for you to join us.
Yes. Yeah.
Even though the time zones, but we can, shift things around. I think the person reading Building the Collective is Karsten, and he is, so you should, the next thing is you should definitely have a chat with him. I'll introduce you guys. And then, yeah, I mean, I think this, it's a new wave. New projects are coming. They're largely developer led. They have a mixture. There's a lot of projects that are, actually, a lot of the projects that are starting is for co-living-ish, people staying for a few weeks to a few months. But all of this needs social design as well.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Okay.
And
I'm noticing B Bola, I think it is, as one of your links on your LinkedIn page for the Australia connection. So I'm going to reach out to them. But you mentioned a person's name.
yeah,
How would I make contact
Karsten
with him?
Christiani, I'll connect you with him. We can
Yes.
we can do the chat on Messenger and stuff. And yeah, I think with the community building, community design, especially in your context, it will take some work and to set up. But if you can save a developer, a big developer, how much are they spending? They're spending hundreds of thousands probably on sales materials, on advertising. You see those big bloody billboards all around town, and I'm sure they have them around your town as well, because they're everywhere in the
Well,
world.
one developer told me it was 17% of the overall project. That is huge. And even to cut that in half, it's down to 8.5%
I
is
are
a
saving
massive
before you
saving.
know it.
Yes.
So I think there the angle I would go for is figure out who are the marketing communications agencies. I think at least some of the forward-looking developers, they know that they should probably be doing some customer engagement and blah blah blah, but they completely have no idea about it. They're as excited about it as I would be about managing physical workers on the construction site. Just like,
Yeah. Yeah.
keep me far away from that. That sounds scary and unpleasant.
Yeah. Yeah.
So providing that as a service, the communications, community building, and selling it as, again, not selling it as kumbaya, but selling it as you will be able to sell much faster, pre-sell everything before you finish building, and it will save you on advertising costs. And especially, don't start with the 100-unit, massive apartment blocks, but start with the smaller, more local things.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
or uh, yeah, I don't know if the government, because I don't know how much the government is building and stuff. I don't know that world, but small, medium developers are more likely, and the money is smaller, but it's a more manageable project size and such to start with.
Yes. Yeah.
That's
I agree with
then
these
that's one. And then
yeah.
the other one is that's built to sell developers. I don't know what the ratio is, but built to rent developers. I mean, in markets where there is stuff, they don't like turnover and they want happy people. So I wonder if there is an opportunity there for, community support, community management.
Yes. Uh, what I notice here in Australia, the not-for-profit housing sector. So these are the churches, uh, maybe philanthropic groups who receive government funding to build houses. They at least have a little bit more social. They're rarely focused on ecological, but they're a little bit more socially focused. And what I notice is they're quite stretched on the budget they have to get as many people into a home as possible. So it is about an economic model primarily, but they do have some awareness of the social implications and the social architecture. And when I mention to them, well, the social architecture is something that I can do, again, they glaze over. Well, we have people who organise shared meals, or we have people who organise the bowls club or the card nights or things. And I say, well, actually, that's not this. That's part of it, but not the other. So, again, it's languaging.
There is
I would say that it's a couple of years away before that mainstream has an awareness of social architecture and is willing to fund it, um, particularly in residential developments. It might be in large companies, they're already engaging people who have a social architecture point of view or skill set. But in residential development, I think it's perhaps a decade away. And in that time, I'm changing my focus to how can I generate an income in this space, which I can see coming. I think it is 5 years to 10 years, and we will see many more of these developments.
I think learning to speak the language is really important, and there is no points for really there is no points for language elitism or whatever. In last year, I organized the gathering. That's an event I organized, trying to bring people across movements. I had 300 calls last year, and one really stuck with me. Amazing, amazing systems change maker woman in Poland working on soil health. And she had an amazing journey. She started as a children's book editor and this, but now and she said, I have 50, 60,000 people in my Facebook groups in Poland. I don't talk to them about regeneration. I talk to them about soil health, about income, about things that matter to them. And it shouldn't be, but it was an epiphany to me. You talk to people in the language that they understand, and problems that are relevant to them.
Yeah.
And I don't know, you come a bit from academia, so I don't know how much that's influenced your language and stuff, but academia has a disease of this, right?
Yes.
Oh, I
Yes.
have my language and I'm going to beat you over the head with my language until you accept my
Yes.
language, or my language is right. No. And this is to me the fundamental thing about regeneration. You speak to people in the language and to the problems that they have. And if they don't understand, then you're not communicating right. I'm sorry. It's not for other
Mm.
people to feel that you're relevant. If you want them
Yes.
to understand something, you speak to them in the language of the needs that they have. And I believe with this, developers struggling with time, with pre-sales, like you said, 17% going to advertising, there is definitely a door to walk through there. And I would talk actually not even with the developers. I would look and talk to the communications agencies that they use.
Yeah.
And you can discover this, right? Who are their communications agencies? And probably the communications agencies are like, yeah, we know how to do advertising or this and that. Maybe we can do a webinar online, but anything deeper, we don't know. And then you can suggest and collaborate with that.
So Victor, what I'm doing while we're talking, I'm just writing some notes in our chat, and the purpose of that, I'm aware you're recording it through Note Taker.
There is an
So
AI,
that,
so we'll have something. But yeah, thank you for taking notes.
yes.
So yeah, I mean, I think maybe that's good for today.
Mm.
Let's continue the conversation on Messenger, and yeah, let's find ways to get the word out. And I think there is a lot of people that are in a similar space of I'm done with ideology. I just want to get this out into the world whilst getting paid for it.
Yes, yes. Theology, I agree. So next steps is you mentioned Messenger. I'm already quite involved with many groups, and to be part of another group, I need to weigh up the time involvement and then
Of course. I mean,
what can be received.
I think it will be useful for you to at least have a conversation with Karsten.
Yes, I agree. Yeah.
Doing that, I mean, involve. I fully appreciate what you said. Maybe it's not relevant for you to get involved at this stage, but yeah, I mean, if you feel like actioning or turning some of the things that we talked about here, I'm happy to have another call and help you design some kind of an action plan out of this if you think that's interesting. Or yeah, I mean, whatever way I can be of assistance. For me, I'm going to focus myself this year on trying to get to into the rooms and talking to the high net worth individuals and such that do have the money and could fund this.
Yes. That's a great strategy. And Victor, I offer the same that you've offered to me. If that you are conceptually or you're working through something and you would appreciate a perspective from outside your mind, outside your thinking, to reflect back. This is one of the skills that I've been reminded lately, that I'm good at hearing people, to receive and then share back to them, this is what I've heard, and to help them with strategy. So that's something I offer to you in return, because I also notice it for myself. That's so vital to be able to do, to be able to share. This is a problem I'm grappling with, or a different perspective, and gain an outside view on that can be very, and then to help to say, well, okay, well, a strategy from that could be this one, this one, this one, just like you've shared with me this morning. So, yeah.
Wonderful.
I look forward to a meeting with you and Custom, and let's see where that can go. I get a sense, and this is within my heart and also my gut, that there is we'll be seeing each other more and more, because you are a proactive, as am I, and I'm wanting to spend time with proactive conceptualists that actually then bring it to a tangible reality too. So, and one day I look to get over to Tamera. I visited Zeg in Germany,
Oh, wow.
and of course Zeg and Tamera are brother sister communities. And I had heard that there's movement in Costa Rica with a similar philosophy, similar way of being, but I don't know much about that project yet.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Uh, well, wonderful. Thank you for your time. Hope you get better.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Okay.
Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.